I think we are go. Hi guys, apologies. Oh, am I in? Am I in? I saw some loading there. Hope I'm okay. Give me a 1 in the chat if you could hear me and see me okay. Hello everybody. Yeah, so apologies for a slightly late starting of this. It's a few things I had to quickly do just as my live stream was about to start, but hey, I'm here now. I was avoiding this subject like the plague. When I say avoiding it, I'm not talking about avoiding broadcasting it on the channel. I was avoiding reading into it, because when something just blows up your timeline and it concerns a black person in the UK, you know that you're dealing with a smear campaign. When you literally can't escape a story, you know that this is just going to be something that's just going to piss you off. Because in the UK, and this is the overriding theme of the black experience in the UK, is disproportionate reactions to things that don't require that kind of response on the media. If a black person does something in the UK, okay, that's that white people do all the time, but let's say it's not a good thing, or if there's something that brings that person into disrepute, they make out like the world should be standing still and this should be a point of learning for everyone. And it's just like unbelievable, because I didn't want to look into this story because I knew what it was going to be. This whole disgraced Professor Arday. So I'm talking about Professor Arday here, Jason Arday, who's the disgraced Cambridge professor. And I was like, straight away, disgraced for what? Why was he disgraced? And lo and behold, the UK did not disappoint. The UK never disappoints, because when you look under the rug, it's a tempest in the teacup. It's literally a tempest in the teacup. Is he entirely faultless? No. He's about as flawed as any other academic. In fact, he's markedly less flawed than several academics like Dr. Richard Lynn and Dr. David Snarky, who they are absolutely 100% okay with in the UK. These are people who should have been disgraced and ousted a long time ago. But because he's black, he's not allowed to have a little tiny inconsistency here, there with his CV. And sometimes not even his CV, it's just what they allege is his backstory. Oh, well, he said this time. It is a whole bunch of nothing. And if you see the way they're dragging this guy through the mud, but bear in mind, they're only using him as a proxy to drag all black academics through the mud and to act like. So this is just like become the ultimate Charlie Kirk talking point. See, I told you that any black person who's achieved any level of success was just given it, because the UK just makes it so easy for black people. The UK just makes it so easy to be a successful black academic. The UK just always giving opportunities and handouts to black people. Literally the ultimate gaslight, the exact reverse being true. Any black person you see with a PhD, let me tell you something right now. You can't even compare the UK to the US when it comes to grant on PhDs. When it comes to racism in academia, UK is like, it's gone. It's gone. Forget it. There's no other country that compares. Racism in academia in the UK is out of control. Out of control. It's so difficult to get past the point of postgraduate in the UK as a black academic. It's so difficult to get fairly graded as a black academic in the UK. And I know this from the experience of having spoken to multiple black PhDs. I've interviewed multiple black UK PhDs, 5, in fact, on the Down with the King channel. Okay. And that's not all of them. So I've spoken with multiple black PhDs, and none of them had the kind of experience that suggests it was easy, it was handed to them. In fact, many of them have had to do multiple resubmissions of their PhD thesis change universities, change institutions, so many different things. And then they're turning around and they're trying to make out like this dude here is like the second coming of Satan. And I'm looking into the story finally, and I'm like, okay, let me look into the story. And I'm like, the dude hasn't even done anything. Like they have that, they're literally, and this reminds me, the only thing I could think of is this is the only time I've seen this kind of hysteria is with Meghan Merkel, who was similar, okay, in that she had a bit of black in her and she's in the royal family. So England has this big thing about black people being in places that they believe should be reserved for white people. And that's what a lot of this boils down to. If you're an academic in the UK and you earn a professorship, you're now in a space that we only accept white people here. If you're a black person and you're married to a royal, no, we don't, and they'll use any excuse to tear down, to destroy, to bring into disrepute, to totally sully the name of that individual and then justify it. Act like it's totally above board, like it's totally, someone gave an excellent example. Lewis Hamilton is another example. Like people, we witnessed open cheating against Lewis Hamilton on more than one occasion. Open cheating, okay? Even from his own team, yeah? Who wanted another person in the team to win and not him. I think this is back when he used to drive for, was it Mercedes or Ferrari? I think he went from Ferrari to Mercedes. So this might be when he drove for Ferrari. Don't quote me. I'm going to say allegedly because I could have that wrong. But they openly admitted that they cheated against him because they wanted another driver to win. Openly admitted it, holding him in the pit stop for too long. Like, this is wild stuff. But when you're black and you're occupying a space that has been reserved for white people, particularly in the UK, they will find a way of destroying you. And this is why, of the black academics I know, many of them are very, very careful about what they say and how they carry themselves, how they conduct themselves. Because the UK will team up. They form this like Avengers team to bring down black people, where it's going to be a combination of racist academics, think tanks, the media. They'll all do it without even coordinating. They're just on sync. They are on code. Take Operation Takedown. Oh, Meghan Merkel thinks she's bigger than the white population because she's a black royal. Take her down. And that's what they did. It didn't matter what she did. She could just be walking down the street. Meghan Markle walks with arrogance, rubbing her pregnant belly. Meghan Markle's accepts to her pregnant belly, saying that she experienced racism. Oh, Meghan Markle, Me Too racism, crying, blah, 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 victim mentality. Like, it's vile. And they act like everything that's happening, it's always an attack. So right now, this is being framed. The entire Jason Arday thing is being framed as an attack against white academics. Oh, someone else should have got the job. No, he got the job because he actually deserved the job, and you still haven't proven otherwise. He's resigned because he's probably getting death threats at this point, knowing the UK public. I'd imagine that his life probably is in danger because of the way the UK media is covering this. And they don't care. They won't take any responsibility for that. The fact that this man's life is now in danger. They won't take any responsibility for the fact that they've destroyed his reputation. No, it doesn't matter. They don't take any responsibility for the fact that this entire campaign was started by a far-right kind of think tank that believes that no black person should ever achieve a professorship. Quote me on that. That's a fact. This entire campaign was started by a far-right group that believe that no black person should ever be able to achieve a professorship. Quote me. Will they take any responsibility for that? Well, no, because racism in the UK is its own unique breed of racism. You have to understand it hits different over here. It hits different over here. Joy asked a perfectly good question. What is he accused of? The answer is, Joy, no one really knows. And that's the beauty. Just like you could ask me the same question. What is Meghan Markle accused of? Who knows? They just don't like her. So they're going to take her down. So he's accused initially of plagiarism. His work was checked by multiple people in senior positions, multiple PhDs, people who are actually PhD supervisors. Did they agree? Yes, that it wasn't perfect PhD, that it could have been better? Absolutely. But was there any plagiarism? No. Everyone said, no, this isn't plagiarism. Do the media care? No, they don't care. They're going to carry on. Once the forest fire has started, they're going to follow through. They're going to follow through. There's nothing that you could produce to now defend this man. The only thing that's going to happen is they're going to get more and more evidence to defame him. And that's where we are now. It's absolutely wild. You just need to be black, and somewhere they don't want you to be. And this is what they'll do to you. Let's get into some of these videos now, because yeah, I didn't have any idea what was going on. I looked into this, and this is why the reason I didn't look into it, because I knew it was going to be a whole bunch of BS. And guess what? It's a whole bunch of BS. Man, it's a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Let's get into the first video.
He's gone. Dr. Jason Arday.
Give me a 1. Give me a 1 if you heard the audio. Okay, when I clicked play, then just give me a 1. Give me a 2 if you didn't hear anything. You should have heard the words "he's gone" and look at the and the smile and the glee of "he's gone." Dr. Jason Arday. Give me a 1 if you heard it, and I'll carry on playing. I need to know that it's work playing. Okay, 2 if you didn't hear it. Come on, guys. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Okay, couple of 1s too. I'm gonna guess that it's working from the couple of 1s there. So I'm just gonna bring it back, and let's start, because this is typical of the kind of coverage that this story is getting. So let's get straight into it.
He's gone. Dr. Jason Arday, the Nobel Prize-winning Olympic athlete, has resigned in the wake of a plagiarism scandal. Who should be held culpable for the Cambridge professor's undoing? Is he a victim of positive discrimination imploding? Welcome to the Daily Tea with me, Tim Stanley.
And me, Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Is he a victim of positive discrimination imploding? Very leading question there. Okay, so they're not even given the possibility of there being another side to the story, that he's actually in this position because he deserves it by his own merits.
Academia is full of mad people. Jason Arday's personality type is quite common. If when I was in a common room, someone had come in and said, "I ran a marathon last night in 2.5 minutes," we wouldn't have batted an eyelid. That's perfectly normal. Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Just to be clear, he never claimed he ran a marathon in 2.5 minutes. He's being hyperbolic here, but obviously this is what a lot of their accusations rely on, being hyperbolic, making things that are not really mad claims sound really extreme.
Welcome back to the Daily Tea. Lovely to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
It's so nice to see you. I mean,
1 second, I'm going to speed this up, by the way. I'm not trying to listen to this real time. Let's clock through, because we've got quite a few cover. I'm definitely not doing this 1-to-1 normal playback speed. So let's get that juiced up and let's go.
I mean, don't worry, everyone. Camilla will be back next week.
I know that you'll get the real deal next week.
We're obviously going to discuss the Telegraph's top story, which is Jason Arday. Before we get into that, I'd like to begin. Did you have any eccentric professors when you were at university?
Well, the wonderful Norman Stone was around when I was up at Oxford, who was terrific fun, interesting, thoughtful.
So to be clear, they're already describing him as eccentric. They're not giving any clues as to why he's eccentric other than showing his image, and I'm guessing the presence of long dreadlocks and what does appear to be eyeshadow is putting him in that eccentric bucket. Although I don't know, we have to see what his actual lecturing style is like to make that claim. I don't think they've probably experienced it enough to even say that.
And enjoyed a drink or two.
He did. There's the famous story about when he was at a party with Margaret Thatcher, and he had just come back from America, and he drank so much that he collapsed, and there was an enormous crash as he pulled the table down with him. And Margaret Thatcher looked at him with pity and said, "Poor Norman, it must be the jet lag."
Margaret Thatcher was a remarkably kindly person.
Yeah, this is a surprising thing people don't realize about her.
And that's how entertaining your average UK academic is. Oh, what a wonderful. And this is why they call us DEI hires, because when a black academic comes in and makes jokes that are actually funny and engages people in a way that's actually entertaining, it leaves them in the dust. So they have to pull them down. They have to pull them down and make them seem, oh, they're eccentric, this, that, the other. You lot are just dry. You're dry. You're not funny. You don't make education interesting. Okay. This is all. You are the DEI hires, to be clear. Anyway, let me carry on because I'm going to rant.
played the piano.
I didn't know that.
She played the piano, yes, and also went for.
Playing the piano was her forte.
We're going to talk about Professor Jason Arday, who last night sadly resigned as Professor of Magic and head of Gryffindor at Jesus College, and this.
It's just mockery once again. This is by the way, the Telegraph. This is a broadsheet paper in the UK, yeah, and he's using that kind of mockery. But anyway, let's carry on.
Follows the Telegraph revealing that he claimed to have published a book of which we can find no evidence. The book was called Being Young, Black and Male, Challenging the Dominant Discourse. It was listed in his biography description in published essays, as well as promotional material for events, but there is no evidence of the book.
So listen to what they just said there. He's got a book, and it's listed in what he uses for promotional towards events. So they haven't got any evidence that this is on his CV, because it likely isn't on his CV. It's not in anything that's in a kind of like, in a kind of like professional domain. This is just literally like, oh yeah, this is his website. So this is a book which likely was written, but maybe perhaps wasn't published, but it's only in his personal kind of like biography page on his website. It was no part of his hiring process, but this is what they'll do. They'll pick out every little thing you can find. So imagine if I was doing my CV and I referred to an article that's maybe in my, I could refer to the article that I wrote that's in academia.edu, and it's not been published officially anywhere, but it's still a, you know, was it 18,000 word paper that has been read by multiple qualified PhDs who all think is a good paper. I could post that as part of my CV if I was applying maybe for some kind of a teaching position, and then pick at that, oh, well, we haven't seen it being published anywhere. This is just what you call a smear campaign.
Book has ever existed, and I don't know if that was the final straw or what it was, but he resigned with a resignation letter in which he talked about how his story will continue. The criticism's been overwhelming. He's going to step aside, and we'll see what Jason Arday does next.
Well, who wouldn't step aside when for the last 4 days he's been on the front page of every single newspaper, and he's been probably 1 in 3 of my YouTube stories has his face on it. And this is even when I wasn't engaging, when I refused to engage. So the media has gone full gung-ho, and not a single story I've seen in support of him. Look at the thumbnails even to the right of this screen. A story of corruption by Times News. This was a disaster by Novara Media. So, I got a call from the police after covering Jason Arday. Polanski defends Professor Jason Arday. Like these are all here. Yeah, you can see them in the side. This guy's life is being put on display for everybody to pick apart. And so far, I haven't heard anything else than a unwarranted plagiarism accusation, yeah, and the fact that his PhD wasn't the greatest thing that you've ever written. But there are some lousy PhD papers out there. That doesn't make him unique at all.
Penicillin, I don't know. I just wanted to get your instant reaction to the whole story as you've been following it. What have you made of the character of Jason Arday?
Well, there are these automotive characters that this happens. You get people who pretend to be kings. You know, it's quite
pretend to be kings. So by applying for a job as a professor, being given the job as a professor through a fair recruitment process, a meritocratic recruitment process, he achieves that position. He's now pretending to be king. How is he pretending? You can hear they tell on themselves through the language that they use. No, you viewed him as a king. You see him as someone, when he's got that professorship, as someone who's better than you. That's why you use that word, pretending to be king, because we haven't seen anything in the way he conducts himself that makes him think that he's better than anybody else. I haven't seen any of that come from him. So all they're doing is just telling on themselves, like they constantly do.
It's not a common problem, but it is a problem that occurs throughout history of people thinking that they have done all sorts of things that they have not done. I would hold Cambridge much more culpable than I would hold Arday, because Cambridge has promoted him, decided he was a poster boy for their DEI policies, has given him a public profile that when it turns.
And by the way, you'll notice that a lot of people will say DEI policies, and obviously I say it to throw it back at them, but this is now official media, okay, official broadsheet media. DEI doesn't exist in the UK, to be clear. We don't have DEI here. So when white people in the media use DEI, they're already telling on themselves that they are right wing in their ideology, because DEI is a American Trumpian talking point. In the UK, we don't have diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have equality, diversity, and inclusion. We have EDI. That's specifically the UK policy. We do not have DEI. We've never had a DEI policy, and EDI has never been a talking point in the UK. No one ever in the UK turned around and said, "You know what? We just give too much to these browns and blacks. We just make it too easy for them." No one's ever said that. No one's ever said that. Immigration, absolutely, yeah, has been an issue in the UK for a long time. But this idea that once immigrants get here, they're promoted to the to the hallowed halls of academia, to the very, very top, they're given the best positions. That isn't even a thing. That's never been a thing. And so when you hear people like this talking about DEI, you're already parroting what is a right-wing American talking point that doesn't exist in the UK. We have different initiatives in the UK. Like I said, we have EDI, we have BAME, we have different initiatives, and all those are the very bottom of the barrel equality hiring process. Like, make sure that you don't only hire white people forever and ever. Try and put a black and a brown, and most of the time all of those positions will be taken up by Indians, by the way, who don't give jobs to black people. So mostly like BAME positions and EDI positions will be taken up by women and Asians. So most of the time black people don't even benefit from any of these schemes. But the fact that this idiot here is talking about DEI, and you'll hear this over and over again today, it shows you how much they've picked up on these anti-black American talking points. Because when they say DEI, they tend to not be talking about women or brown people. It's just like woke. They're only talking about black people. And that's another word that you'll hear being used often.
Turned out to have some errors in it, has come crashing down on him. So he, poor man, seems to be a bit of a fantasist and takes all the blame for this and must be having quite an unpleasant time. Cambridge just shrugs its shoulders and say, we'll have no investigation, and now he's gone. It's not really our problem. But actually, it is Cambridge's problem, and I think Cambridge has behaved atrociously in
That's a strong word. I think Cambridge has behaved atrociously. Let's see why.
promoting somebody without having checked. And there's been
Promoting someone without having checked what? He has a PhD. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. Now, do people often go back? If someone is, someone's got a PhD, they got a certificate, and you've checked with the institution, yes, this person has a PhD. How often do hiring managers go back and say, okay, yeah, you've got to get a job, but I'm going to need to read your PhD cover to cover? How many do that? Very few. I'm not saying it's not done. I'm sure there are people who might find your topic, your thesis interesting, but more often than not, most people will be satisfied with the fact that your qualification exists, it's real, and you proved it. He has that qualification. As much as they want to strip him of that qualification or take it away from him, he did submit a PhD. His PhD was not plagiarized. Therefore, he's legitimately done the work that 99.999% of people in the UK have not done, and got himself at the very highest level of education. That's a fact. So we're talking about, oh, they should have checked. Should have checked what? This is what these people do. They talk in these, like I said, these dog whistles. They talk in these very vague terms that are very condemning and very strong, but very, very loose on any kind of evidence. It's kind of like, well, I'm white and I said so. Where's your evidence for any of these accusations?
pushback saying he's getting an unreasonable amount of publicity. Well, that's only because Cambridge promoted him to make him their poster boy and was so proud of him until he turned out not to be real.
I think that's spot.
And shouldn't Cambridge be proud of their academics, of their people that they hire into positions? You wouldn't mind if they were proud of a white man. You're just angry that they're proud of black people. And once again, this is about pushing that bar out so that now no institution's allowed to show any pride in their black people. No institution's allowed to hire black people, even though they're already making it 10 times harder for black people. It's now going to be 20 times harder because they want to make sure they're so rigorous and they don't want to be caught up in another DEI storm. All this does is it makes it much easier for white men to walk into jobs that they're already walking into. So all this will do is the exact reverse and make it so that white people are going to be walking into jobs unqualified. White men in particular, let me make that clear. White men are going to be walking into jobs unqualified, no proof, no ability to do the job. And most of us in the UK experience the fact that white men have these jobs already. White men are in director positions, they're in MD positions, they're in the top roles, senior management. And you're like, why is this fucking retard? So excuse my French. But you're like, why is this idiot, this flipping shit for brains guy, my manager? Why is he like, what is going on? Sorry guys, excuse my French, I don't normally swear like this, but you can see this is pissing me off. I live here, guys, you have to understand this. Yeah, I live in this country where you've got these incompetent white men running departments and they know nothing about what they've been hired to do. Nothing about. They have no ability to deliver, but they've been hired because they're white, and now they're going to get those jobs even easier as a result of this very deliberate, very strategic hate campaign. They know exactly what they're doing.
On. I'm reluctant to comment upon the state of academia now because I've been out of it for about 15 years, but I did work in it for...
I bet you when you were in it, you never made professor, and that's why you find this hate so delicious. Isn't that, am I right? Am I correct, sir? I bet you never made professor.
Somewhere around the region of a decade. And when people say, how could this sort of thing happen? I think the answer is that academia is full of mad people. Jason Arday's personality type is quite common. If when I was in a common room, someone had come in and said, I ran a marathon last night in 2.5 minutes, we wouldn't have batted an eyelid. That's perfectly normal. And one problem with that is that those people who have these character flaws also manage the institutions, because academia largely manages itself. So the other question is, how could some people have promoted this person? Well,
respectfully, mate, whatever your name is, Jim, Bob, or whatever your name is, yeah, talk to any black person. In fact, talk to anybody who's not a white male, and they'll give you a long list in every single workplace where they've worked of incompetent white men in senior positions of leadership. Yeah, in every single institution. Can we stop acting like, even if Dr. Arday was incompetent, by the way, that hasn't been proven. As far as we know, his PhD is sound. They're just making a big deal about the fact that there's one or two very minor inconsistencies, not on his CV, between what's said on his website
and what was in a book, for instance. Why do you even care? Why do you even know that? Why the hell do you even know that? Oh, well, it says in your website this, but in your book, your biography, you never mentioned that. Why do you even know that? Because you're desperate. You're desperate to make it to justify your racism, to make it seem like, hey, he deserves everything that he's getting. Whereas if you was to talk to the general public, they will give you a long list. Every single individual person is like, yeah, when I worked for this company, I had this manager, and he was a freaking, he was a grifter. You know what I mean? Didn't have a clue what he was doing. Used to make sure he was delegate. That's the favorite word of these incompetent males. Yeah, delegated all of his responsibilities to X, Y, and Z. Didn't know what he was doing, but every month he was collecting that lovely, juicy MD paycheck, because that's what you guys, yeah, that's what you guys do constantly. You know.
If you look at the people who appointed him and you look at their own resumes, they've written a lot of work which is in a similar area to Jason Arday's. So this is a cohort of people to whom his personality would have seemed actually quite normal, I suspect, and his area of work would have seemed current and very relevant and exactly the sort of thing that we should have been promoting. The problem with Arday, actually...
You guys need to understand this. When I talk passionately, this is the King Mono show, yeah? So this is yeah? This is the code switch, yeah? On King's Mono, you get the code switch, yeah? Back here, yeah? This is where you get, because this is Black Britain right now, yeah? What we're talking about right now on this particular subject, yeah? This is Black Britain. And this is another level of piss offness for me, yeah? This is Black Britain. So I'm going to talk, you're going to get uncode switch Black British voice, because this is something that we experience now. It's too much. It's too much. I can't. So those of you who like my reserved pronunciation, you might want to log off now, yeah, because this is how we're talking the whole stream, yeah.
I think it's almost a little bit unfair that we focused on all stuff like claiming to have run all these marathons, claiming to have been on 7-Up.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's what you're talking about. Oh, crazy. I didn't realize. I hit my elbow. I always hit my elbow against that thing. That's so annoying. I'm back. I'm back now. Yeah, I'm back. I'm back. Yeah. Oh man, I'm back now. I'm back. I'm back. Tell me I'm back, guys. There's a little bit of a delay on the chat. Tell me I'm back. I'm gonna let me know that I'm back before I hit. Am I back here, guys? Let me know that I'm back, because right now I don't know. Okay, I'm back. I've got to click play.
Real issue is the plagiarism in the thesis. That's actually the one crime that academia normally wouldn't tolerate.
Yes, that's absolutely right. But
1 second, I've got to bring that back. I've got to see what crime he's talking about here.
Arday, actually, and I think it's almost a little bit unfair that we focus on all stuff like claiming to have run all these marathons, claiming to have been on 7-Up. The real issue is the plagiarism in the thesis. That's actually the one crime that academia normally wouldn't tolerate.
yes, that's absolutely right.
But you haven't proven it. And this is the thing. Since this whole scandal, Jason Arday, or Professor Jason Arday, I'm going to call him that because that's what he is. Professor Jason Arday, or Professor Dr. Jason Arday, whatever you want to call him, he's got those qualifications, both his professorship and his PhD. So let's give him the respect that he's due. None of these things have been taken away from him or stripped from him. He's not a fake like a lot of these lazy white academics who just get given things. Yeah, he's earned those through hard work. He has been put through the ringer since he took that position 3 years ago. So since he took the position 3 years ago, there have been a group of white academics who've been desperate to get him out of that position, desperate to expose him, because that's what they do in academia in the UK. Okay, they do not like black academics. They particularly don't like brilliant black academics. And remember, this is the home of eugenics. This is the home of Dr. Richard Lynn, yeah, whose entire, academic profession has been built on proving that black people are intellectually inferior to their white counterparts. Yeah, because remember, Dr. Richard Lynn, if you don't remember, he looks like Quasimodo. Okay, and I'm sure he hasn't been able to spread his seed to any woman. I don't think any woman would knowingly allow this man to inseminate her. So he probably doesn't have any offspring because no one wants to proliferate his disgusting deficient seed. So he gets his entire kicks, his entire self-worth from the fact that I look like a mix between E.T. and Quasimodo, but he can point to a 6'6" friggin' specimen of a black man with, I'm not saying that's what Dr. Arday is, but with academic achievements, written excellent books, is a specimen, good looking, everybody likes him, talks with prowess and gravitas, and say, well, I'm better than you because my IQ is higher according to the study that I created. That's what they do. That's why they have these studies. That's why they have average IQs. It's an appeal to the crowd. Okay, it's an appeal to the authority of the group. Okay, it's groupthink. So say, hey, I as an individual, I'm insufficient, but my group is superior to your group, and therefore me as an individual, I am superior to anybody within your group, even if you're not, evidently. And that's what a lot of this falls on.
Right, but plagiarism and quoting are bedfellows, aren't they? And academics constantly quote each other. Indeed, it's quite flattering to be referred to by a fellow academic. And so plagiarism is always quite hard to prove absolutely.
Yes.
Because I understand that in his thesis, he did have in the bibliography the other academic whose work he relied on heavily. Now, the question is, was it properly footnoted when he quoted long chunks of it? And then there are other occasions when he seems to have quoted experiences that person X has had and has been reported to have and has applied it to person Y as if it were his own original research. So I think there are issues around his plagiarism, but plagiarism is rarely as clear-cut as all that.
Right.
So in short, let me just summarize what he just said there. We don't have any evidence for plagiarism. What we have evidence for is perhaps poor or inconsistent reference work, which is something that should be picked up by the supervisor. It's the supervisor's job to say, hey, the quality of your referencing on this page are not good, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you want to employ the Chicago style or you want to employ this style, blah, blah, but either which way, you need to sort that out, make sure you're referencing consistently, make it clear where this has come from X, Y, Z. But there's no evidence that's not evidence of plagiarism. Okay. And by the way, once again, his paper wasn't passed by a machine, it was passed by a supervisor. No one discovered anything here. Okay, no one discovered anything here. No one was like, oh, eureka, I found it. There's been nothing that has been discovered about this man that wasn't known before. All you've had is the echo effect of people shouting, and that echo getting louder and louder and louder and louder as people get angrier and angrier about something they shouldn't even be angry about. This literally is the definition of a tempest in the teacup.
Till I tell you that I wrote the words, in the beginning God said, let there be light, and there was light, and that would be clear plagiarism.
Yes, I think it's when plagiarism tips over into cutting and pasting. But I take the point that academia is all about.
Well, it never tipped over into copying and pasting. And by the way, it's not illegal to copy and paste if you put it between quotation marks. So you make it clear that it's a quotation. So even that, you need to make it very, very clear what your accusation is, because I've even seen attempts to show his work at being plagiarism by showing kind of like a few lines of prose, but it's like, that's called a quotation. Okay, that's what that's called. It's called a quotation. You're literally allowed to do that. Okay, there's in fact that's what's encouraged. Yeah, people want to see people you do that. You're quoting from references. You're finding secondary references to support your thesis, to support your argument. You're not just making arguments up from the spot. That's not how academics work. So they once again, they like to work between this kind of fuzzy logic, so it sounds like something nefarious is going on, but they don't actually have the evidence that anything nefarious has actually gone on.
Legitimacy in academia comes from showing that you've done the reading and that you're adding to what has come before. In that regard, it's surprisingly conservative. It's not the philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche who appear to just simply make stuff up in their head and put it on the page. That's not normally how scholarship works at all. It's about demonstrating that you're coming from a tradition and you're building upon or correcting what is.
In respect to what this guy is saying, that's how scholarship and academics works now. But if you was to go back to the late 19th century, early 20th century, that is literally what all scholars used to do. Okay, they didn't used to, this whole idea of pumping your paper or your PhD thesis full of quotations from previous researchers wasn't a thing. They just used to say, okay, I'm going to go out and do all of this entirely original research, and this is my theory about how it all falls together, and this is my evidence to support my theory, and that was it. Okay, so acting like there's been this kind of like, well, since the advent of academia, everyone has been doing X, Y, Z, and that's not the case. That's not the case at all. Okay, this is where we are now, and you're trying to use that very rope of kind of like process to hang the professor because you don't like him, because he's, like Kieran has so well put, he's a black man that's done things they can't do better than they could do it. No, that's it. He's younger, he's more successful, and they hate the fact that, academia didn't work out for this fellow on the screen here. So it had to be, it had to be DEI, it had to be EDI, it had to be because they gave a black person my job who didn't deserve it. All right, white male, if that's what you believe is the case, sure.
It's been there before. So I can see how those mistakes are made. For me, the central tragedy, though, of the Arday story is that he was writing about what he would call systemic blocks to minorities getting on in higher education. But his scandal will have convinced some people that actually not only those blocks aren't there, but that education is biased towards minority people.
This is what pisses me off and gets me angry. The actual freaking temerity to suggest that education is easier for ethnic minorities than it is for white people in the UK is just it's just nauseating. It's literally just flipping nauseating. How on earth could education be easy? Do you know how hard every single black PhD works? The reason there's so few black PhDs in the UK, okay, and I think they're like 1% of PhDs in comparison to the population. We're like 4% of the population, so tiny amount of black PhDs. The reason why there's so few black PhDs is because they make it so impossibly hard for you to even get a PhD. You'll be discouraged from taking up a PhD because PhDs normally have to be offered by by a professor or something that someone has to offer to supervise you and believe that you can bring something. So you'll find that most black PhDs who do get PhDs, they have to do it in something race specific. They won't just offer you a PhD, you know, in, you know, you're really good in this subject. Let's get you doing a doctorate. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it happens so few that most Black people are forced to do very specific, race-specific kind of like, race-specific studies in order to gain their PhD, and then bringing things like critical race theory, etc., to justify that they're adding something new. White people don't have any of that burden. They can do their PhD whatever the flip they want. Yeah, no one's pigeonholing them. Everyone's throwing PhDs at them, and I know of multiple people who have literally had PhDs thrown in their face and been like, I don't want to do that. I'm tired of studying now. I have never met a Black person who turned down a funded opportunity to do a PhD in my life. In my life, I've never met one. I've met Black PhDs who paid for their own PhD. Multiple. I've met Black PhDs who paid for their own PhD. I've never met a white person who paid for their own PhD, and I've never met a person who's turned down a PhD that the institution offered to pay for. But hey, you know, these guys just, you know, whatever version of reality suits them.
Now, I don't think that's true, because if nothing else, you know, Restore voters.
No, super thin guy to explain. Blacks are a minority, but 4% of the population. So we make 1% of PhDs, not 1% of qualified, 1% of PhDs. If 4% of the population, we should make 4% of PhDs if everything was equal, but it's not equal. We make, so basically our PhD population within the Black community is 25% of what the PhD population is within the white community. So out of every 100,000, like, or 1,000 Black people, we produce 1/4 the amount of PhDs that white people produce. So that works on a kind of a per capita basis, just to explain that so you understand that.
Just can relax. Academia is still overwhelmingly white, right? Like the country. But nonetheless, he will give encouragement to those who think that academia is this kind of conspiracy against the public, because much of his own story looks like a conspiracy against the public.
Yes, I'm sure you're right about that. I'm sure that people will take his promotion, his success, which seems now to be bogus, as an argument for saying there's a two-tier promotion in academia, and that if you're a white man, you're probably held back.
And notice how they're speaking in very conclusive terms, as though the judge and the jury has already said, well, he's resigned, and so therefore he never deserved the position at all. They're not going to take any responsibility. This is the same thing, like I said, they've done with Meghan Merkel. It's like you bully the woman literally to the point where her life is in danger. The Queen herself removes any kind of like royal security from her and her grandson, because, you know, they're psychopaths like that. They know that their lives are in danger. They flee to America, and then they take the act of them fleeing to America as proof of that. Oh, well, you see, there you go. She fled to America. We told you she was a witch. We told you, didn't we? Didn't we tell you that she was evil? Like, what are you talking about? His resignation is not the admission of guilt. Yeah, it's the fact that he doesn't want his life to be consumed, and probably got sick and tired of seeing his face on the front of newspapers and being called all sorts. Do you think that Jason Arday can get on a train in London anymore? Do you think that Jason Arday can, do you think that Professor Arday can walk down a high street? He can't go anywhere. They've ruined his life over the fact that they just wanted to ruin his life. Like, nothing that he's done is even newsworthy. If there was an investigation going on about his PhD, since when did the public give two flying SHITs about the contents of someone's PhD thesis? Oh, well, you know, and all of a sudden, now you'll find the general public, everyone's going to become an expert in analyzing PhD thesis, just like they are with the Odyssey. Oh, well, if you look at the Homeric text, what you'll find is that what you'll find is that Helen of Troy actually uses the term Lukalenos, which is the Greek. You didn't know any of this shit before. You didn't care. You didn't care. But when you got your little race between your teeth, that little race argument, that little anti-black, oh, it tastes so good. That little anti-black bone between their teeth. These guys cannot calm themselves. They just go off on one. They go crazy with it. Yep, I'm on my anti-black rant now. And now everyone's going to become an expert in the process of hiring that a university should take to hire a professor without any evidence of having any knowledge in the subject. I'm going to skip ahead now because I want you guys to hear from Dr. Kane there. something, Kane Andrews, who's a black academic, and he really just breaks down exactly what is going on here. So I'm gonna try and find the point where his interview starts. Is that the start of it? Yeah, that is the start of it. Whoop. Oh no, it's here. So I think it's here. All right, and before I kick play on that, let me just give a shout out to Kieran. Thank you very much for your $5 donation. He says they make it hard for black folks, but super easy for white men to qualify in anything. Absolutely. And they use that as proof that black people aren't as good. Exactly. So they create a gate, and then they go, oh well, look, if more, it's like it's a completely catch-22 for black people. It's like, well, if black people were more competent, there'd be why aren't there more black MDs and directors? It's like, because you aren't hiring any. Well, that's because it's a meritocracy. Like if they were good enough for the job, they get it. Well, you guys won't hire any regardless of that. That's why we have equality measures in place to make sure that you guys actually make sure that you are hiring meritocratically and you're not writing people off from the very, very start. Oh, well, and it's like you can't win an argument with someone who's that ignorant. You can't win an argument or debate with these people. They literally just hate us. They hate us. They hate our progress. They hate what we do. They literally hate everything about us, and they will find any excuse. They don't need justification for literally the entire media sphere is focused on this guy. It might not be coming up in your feed if you're not from the UK, but if you're from the UK, this story is unavoidable at the moment, and you'd think that this guy was on Epstein's island. Not in fact that would have even gotten the coverage. You'd think that this guy was Epstein reincarnated from the way that these guys are covering this story. Yeah, what are you talking about? Everyone's angry about the fact that a guy got a professorship and they want to know that he's done 10 times more than any white applicant. That's really what bothers them. They don't like the fact that maybe his CV and the speed at which he's managed to get his promotion, because he's not the youngest ever professor. He's the youngest black professor. And notice they won't tell you how young the youngest ever professor was, which is obviously a white male. But I bet you the youngest ever professor that's a white male is probably a lot younger. Okay. But this youngest black professor, they want to know that he did 10 times more to get that job than any other applicant, because that's their expectation. And just the very thought of the fact that they were impressed by this guy, they were impressed by his work, they were impressed by his talent, that they're vexed by that. They're vexed. Black people shouldn't be getting the job because of this is a meritocracy. Black people shouldn't be getting the job because they're talented. They should be getting the job because they've worked 10 times as hard as everybody else. That's literally what they want. So that's what they want. And this is their response to it, because they haven't seen that in this case. They've seen an institution that have been enamored by someone's talent, by the fact that they've managed to get their PhD, which is an achievement in itself. But then since then do amazing things in terms of his job and his performance, to the point where they're like, yeah, this is an easy promotion to make. Hey, that kind of favoritism is normally reserved for us, white folks. How dare you? How dare you give how dare you give a black guy a chance? DEI, I tell you. These people, they're just, yeah. Anyway, let's get into Dr. Kane Andrews, because he breaks it down really well.
And who was until recently himself a professor of black studies at Birmingham City University. Professor Andrews, you have said that the criticism of Jason Arday amounts to a smear campaign that is as predictable as it is baseless. Well, let's deal with those two things separately in reverse order. Baseless. I mean, the mountain of evidence about misrepresentations of
mountain of evidence,
things in his private life is one thing, but does the suggestion that there is a considerable amount of plagiarism in his PhD not concern you as an academic?
So I'm white and I say so versus the actual data.
Does that? So there are substantive allegations. One of those is a PhD. Interestingly, he actually sent me his PhD about a year ago, because this has been going on for years behind the scenes. And when I was seeing it, I read through it. I put it through plagiarism detection software. Everything you're seeing in the news, I've already seen. It's definitely poor scholarship. It's definitely problematic, but it doesn't arise to the level of plagiarism. And this is why Liverpool John Moores, when they investigated it, said, look, there's problems here, mainly with supervision around how this probably shouldn't have got through because badly supervised, but did it actually damage the academic credibility, the findings, the uniqueness of it? No, it didn't. And it's not plagiarism. So that's why I'm saying it's baseless, because that's kind of the underpinning thing around all of this. Plagiarized PhD. When we know he didn't, there's investigations that he didn't. So why is this in the news?
Well, even if it were.
So plagiarism is a no-no. Yeah, this is a PhD who is a supervisor who marks PhDs. He said, yeah, there could have been stuff done better, stuff that should have been picked up by the supervisor in terms of, you know, the quality of the writing. There's some errors in there, like he said, spelling errors. Okay, they can creep through. But in terms of plagiarism, that's a non-starter. It's not plagiarized. End of discussion. End of discussion. And there's been multiple PhDs who have overlooked the paper and said, no, this isn't plagiarized. So I was going to go, well, plagiarism aside, what do you mean plagiarism aside? You just said you just said that the plagiarism is unforgivable. And now that he's proven you wrong on that, you're not going to concede that, okay, you've made an error there. Let's bring it back.
Around all of this, plagiarized his PhD. When we know he didn't, there's been investigations that he didn't. So why is this in the news?
Well, even if it weren't plagiarism and it were poor scholarship, I think what would surprise regular people is that Cambridge could take someone and celebrate them and push them so hard who has been guilty of poor scholarship. That in and of itself is troubling, right?
Guilty of poor scholarship. So notice that the phrase in there, okay? He got his PhD. What do you mean he was guilty of poor scholarship? He handed it to his supervisor. His supervisor, you know what I mean? He did his Viva, did all the other stuff that they have to go through, and he got his PhD. Guilty of poor scholarship. Who's not guilty of poor scholarship? Okay, it happens all the time. Okay, not every PhD is a publishable book. Okay, many of them aren't. And he's already explained that. But anyway, let's see him explain this some more.
Well, you're a PhD, is that you're a student, you're learning. And so he's not a PhD. You don't get a professorship at Cambridge because you have a PhD. Many people have PhDs. You get a professorship at Cambridge because of your publications, because of your research, because of everything else. So if someone made mistakes through sloppy supervision and sloppy work in the past, if they've proven they have a straight record of academic excellence, I'm not sure why you would think that they should undermine everything else that they've done. PhD's early. It's not the thing that got him a job at Cambridge.
How much do you blame Cambridge?
And he very clear there. He said the PhD is not what got him the job at Cambridge. Okay, he got his job because of the other publications he's done, because of the work he's done, because of what he's put in. Yeah, so he's literally a meritocratic hire. Everything they're saying, by the way, is being disproven here. And what notice they won't concede one bit.
Cambridge for the row that has arisen, because it seems to me that they were very keen to promote Dr. Arday and to put him forward as an example of how Cambridge was changing, and therefore opened him up to this level of scrutiny because that's where the publicity originates.
And to be clear, he just said there, because they were so keen to hire him, they opened him up to this level of scrutiny. To who? To racists like you. Yes, those two white men in that studio are both racists. So because you don't believe black people should be in those positions or should be more heavily scrutinized, like why would it open anybody up to a level of scrutiny? I don't give two shits, yeah, if a white man gets a job in Cambridge, as most people don't. You haven't got an army of black people sitting around waiting for the next white hire to go, oh, I wonder why they hired him, eh? Let's check his qualifications. Oh, let's do a little check on his back. Let's hire a private investigator. Like, no one's doing that. No one's doing that for these white men. So why do you believe it's okay to say, oh, well, you know, you've hired a black person and therefore you've opened him up to this level of scrutiny because he was black and because he was young? No, that just proves you've just proven you're a racist. Yeah, you have just proven that you're a racist because you believe that young black people who are hired into positions because of their talent should be put under a higher level of scrutiny. So that proves that when you have the position and you have, you know, your team of white men and that one black guy is in the team, you're looking at him twice. You're looking at him doubly. You're double checking his work. Oh, he's got a high level of scrutiny, you know, we just got to make sure he's doing the job properly. Eh? What's this? Oh. You've just proven you're a racist. You are what we experience every day in the workplace. Yeah, that's what you are.
I think the level of scrutiny would have been there anyway. Since he was hired, there's been, and I don't know him well, so I can't say we're not close friends, but certainly I've spoken to him a couple of times, and he complained that literally since he had that job since as soon as it was announced, and yes, it was publicly announced, but him being black and in that role has really put some people up.
But isn't it fair to question people regardless of that?
So him being black and in that role has put people in, you know, has got up people's backs. And he's saying, isn't it fair That what?
Their race, about honorary professorships that they claim to have that seem not to exist, books that they say are published which may be in the pipeline but don't seem to be emerging from the pipeline, and the other allegations that have arisen, that regardless of race, people are accountable, and these questions are legitimate questions.
I think my issue is if he was not black, we would not be having this conversation. Nobody would go through and troll through the CV, all the every time someone said something online. If you went to just look at you took
Fact. If he was black, this wouldn't be happening. Okay. And that's how they're gonna try and flip that around and say, well, if he was black, he wouldn't have got the position in the first place. Like, no, that's not true at all. If he was white, he would have got the position like a lot easier. If he was a white guy with that backstory and those kinds of achievements, he probably wouldn't have been applying for the professorship. It probably would have been given to him, and he'd probably be applying for a deanship at the moment. That's what would happen if he was white. What on earth are you talking about? But anyway, let me let this guy finish.
look at any average Cambridge professor and put them through this amount of scrutiny, you are going to find some inconsistencies. And the fact is, this level of scrutiny is because he's back at Cambridge. It is not some fair idea. And like I said, even the thing that the gateway to this is his PhD, which has been proven to not be plagiarism. And so really should have been left there. The fact is carried on, and now we're getting all these other claims, etc., just shows the level to which this is actually a smear campaign and not really about academic integrity, politics, and all those things.
To be blunt,
So he made it clear there at the point at which the PhD was proven not to be plagiarized, it should have been left there and there. But this is the thing about racism in the UK. Once they're like a pit bull with lockjaw. Once they get their teeth wrapped around the good story, once they get their teeth wrapped around the victim, they will bite until they crush and drain the life out of that victim. They will not let go. They will not let go. So at that point at which the media decided we like this story, we don't care about the fact that this story was resurfaced by a far-right group, who don't believe any black people are worthy of professorships. We don't care about any of that. We've latched onto this story. We like the plagiarism narrative to a point where these two guys who are supposed to be responsible journalists, they should know that his paper is not plagiarized. And yet they've quoted it probably a dozen times since the start of this article. They've quoted, the plagiarism. No, the plagiarism has been proven. Yeah, it's not plagiarized. But they won't let it go because they need this guy to be a villain. They need this guy to be a villain. They need him to be a DEI hire, as they like to quote. They need this to be a result of woke politics. They need to be the victim. They always need to be the damn victim. That's their whole thing. We are the victim. Oh, a white man lost that job.
and his PhD has not been proved not to be plagiarism. It hasn't been proved to be plagiarism, which is slightly different. That there are still, even you admitted, questions about its quality, and it's just a question of whether you're taking a particular standard of proof for that.
Questions about its quality do not disqualify him from being able to get the PhD because he got it ultimately. So whether or not you like it, his supervisor, irrespective of the errors, thought it was good enough to pass. So it doesn't matter what the questions about his quality are. You're trying to make that a thing, okay? You're trying to make this idea that everybody who takes a PhD submits a perfect thesis. Everybody submits a PhD has got the most perfect, consistent backstory. Like, none of these things are true. This is literally the definition of scapegoating. It's the definition.
I just wonder whether it's right that it's only black people who come under this amount of scrutiny, that there are business people over the years who have faked their CVs, and they've come under this. I accept that the spotlight of publicity can be an unfair and random thing. And particularly in August, it hits individuals who suddenly become the focus of a national furore over something that in normal circumstances would not be of that much interest. But this has happened to other people, and they haven't all been black. I think it is just a consequence of a free press.
Like who? Who's this happened to? Name one. Don't just say it. That's anecdotal. Name who it's happened to. We'd like to know who is this other people that it's happened to. Yeah, because I'm very interested to know, because this feels like one of those typical disproportionately let's make a villain of the day out of a black guy, or villain of the week in this case. Who is this? Yeah, who?
Because the question is, why is it newsworthy? And this, again, I really want to stress this is not his CV. So the issues which would be substantive to his job, PhD, publications, you can say it hasn't been proved as plagiarism. There's no evidence. People have looked at this. People who have expertise, I examine PhDs is what I do. The Liverpool journals have a whole panel looking at this, saying it's not. Have said this compass. The establishment have said his PhD, his qualifications, his publications compass and are fine. And if you're going to tell me that that's the case, why would I possibly think that the Journal of Higher Education is going to give Jason Arday a pass because he's black? That doesn't happen. That's not something that happens. There's no reason they would do that.
The University of Glasgow, a higher
And to be clear, they said the Journal of Higher Education also, you know, and the University of Liverpool, John Moores, which is where he got his PhD from. All of them, they passed the PhD. All of them said no evidence of plagiarism. Okay, we don't know what we're talking about here, but that was the spark, and all these racists need is the spark to then go on their obsessive hunt to destroy someone's life, destroy someone's reputation, destroy someone completely. They do this all the time, by the way. I know I've mentioned Meghan Markle, but they did it with what's his name? Something Latte, the conservative, the black politician who was given a budget to release. He was the chancellor. He released the budget and then they fired him the next day, even though he didn't actually prepare the budget, because that's what they do. If you're black and you're in certain positions, you are the instant, like they will crucify you straight away. You don't get any opportunity. You don't get any second chance. You don't get any benefit of the doubt. He was fired within a government that literally flouted the lockdown laws, yeah, were caught giving contracts, multi-billion-pound contracts to their best mates, yeah, all of this, and not a single Conservative MP resigned or was fired. Meanwhile, they released a single budget, okay, which wasn't received particularly well, but everyone knows that he didn't actually prepare the budget. It was the Prime Minister Liz Truss who prepared the budget. He was just kind of like the face who kind of like presented the budget, and they fired him literally within, like, do you know how long chancellors have gone on a initially bad budget and they've allowed them to see the term out and then make corrections? They will not do that. This country is ruthless when it comes to black people. Kwasi Kwarteng, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kaluvi. Yeah, and I'm not a fan of him, but it's just the typical treatment they give to black people in this country.
State University in the US and Nelson Mandela University in South Africa have also denied claim that he had honorary professorships, which he said he had. Those are CV points. Those are points you make on a CV.
Those are, in fairness, those are claims to answer. I don't know the full details, having spoken to him, people around him. He claims he has evidence for these. I can't say I don't know.
Okay,
right?
That's fair enough.
So they've been going around digging, and they've contacted these institutions, and allegedly these institutions said that they haven't given him these kind of like honorary qualifications. Now, 2 points he made, they said these are CV points where you have to prove, first of all, that's on his CV. And the second point is that he said, no, I have these qualifications, they're here. Sometimes when you call up international institutions, they're not very forthcoming. You have to pay a fee, or you have to prove your kind of like journalistic integrity before they're going to allow you to have access to, you know, a full search of their database to see who they've given what to. So this is the thing. There's never honesty in the way that these guys approach these things. They just want to demonize a certain individual.
Those honorary things get him a job at Cambridge. I did. The job at Cambridge is publications, research funding, credit to teaching, those things. Is there anything there that would have undermined him getting a position at Cambridge? I haven't seen anything that would suggest it.
Professor,
And to be clear, Cambridge haven't come out and said, we have fired him because X, Y, and Z. In fact, Cambridge had no means or grounds to fire him. If there was even one iota of kind of like, well, you know, this is what he's done is incorrect, or he's lied about getting this job, they have to fire him. They don't have a choice. They're an educational institution. So if this was a CV issue, he would have been fired when this storm started kicking up over a week ago. He would have been fired instantly. They would have had to, but they had no grounds to fire him. And in the end, he has had to resign. And it's pretty obvious that he resigned because I'd imagine his life in Cambridge would have been untenable. I'd imagine he'd have media showing up every day. I'd imagine that he's getting threats from people. I'd imagine that he's lost all of his respect within his actual institution as a professor, which is probably what a lot of the professors in there wanted, because they were probably jealous of him being a black guy, and being a black guy in the UK, knowing the kind of jealousy that people will have towards you just for being black in the UK. It's insane. The amount of insecurity that you get from your Asian and white employees towards you. They feel so insecure around articulate black males. They don't know what to do with themselves. Literally, they have no idea what they feel, so threatened because you're breaking something within their psyche, which they felt so secure in doing. Once again, the groupthink is something that makes them feel incredibly secure.
actually don't disagree that this is partly about his color. And on this point, you may accuse me here of blaming the victim, but I wonder if what's going on here is a kind of a referendum on wokeness itself. That some people have seized upon him because they make assumptions, fairly or
a referendum on wokeness itself. Once again, when they use dog whistles like woke, DEI, I already know you're racist, because no one who's not racist uses woke in that way. You are definitely racist. I'm sorry. You're just so he's just proven he's a critical drinker watcher. That's what he's just proven. You know what I mean? It's a referendum on wokeness, so you're racist. Yeah, you don't like black people. Okay. What do you mean a referendum on wokeness? What flipping wokeness do we have in the flipping UK? This idiot's talking about a referendum on wokeness. Please tell me, what wokeness do we have in the UK? There's barely any black people on TV unless you're showing crimes. You don't have any of the kind of like the background statistics like maybe the US does in terms of successful black people in senior positions. You don't give any handouts. There's no kind of like policies strictly set aside for the progress of black people. So even the little that you don't give black people, the little protections that we have, the tiny protections that we have, you're trying to take that away. For those of you who don't know, there's a recent case in the UK where Henry Novak, a white man, died in police custody. And they use this as an example, they use this as an example of the fact that the police are disproportionately harsh towards white people. This is something that has no data whatsoever. They have the lowest stop and search rate in spite of the fact that they are literally the leading criminals in the UK, obviously. Yeah. They have like no evidence of being treated poorly by the police. But what's been happening in the UK is because they've had certain crimes being assigned to certain ethnic groups that are still wrong. Like, for instance, Pakistani grooming gangs. I'm sure you guys have heard that phrase. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, in spite of the existence of Pakistani grooming gangs, Asians still have the lowest rate of child you-know-what in the UK. The second lowest rate is blacks. Guess who has the highest rate? Yeah, you guessed it. This guy and his ilk. Yeah. By a long shot, by the way. Much more likely to be child predators. Yeah. Much more likely. But yet they've put their crime onto brown people because a couple of cases here and a couple of cases there. By the way, not undermining the fact that these cases have happened, but it's putting into perspective in the scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, you're still the threat when it comes to children, not brown people. Your child's still going to be, comparatively safer if you have an Asian middle-aged neighbor as opposed to a white middle-aged neighbor. That's what the statistics say. And so they use cases like this, which are fringe, and then they try to project them as though this is the pattern. So now, oh my God, a white man died in police custody. Oh, but they ignore the hundreds of black and brown people who have died in police custody or just being popped in back of the head by the police. And by the way, that happens periodically, where a Muslim or a black is just, City of London police taken out. Yeah. Happens. You know how often it happens to white people? Almost never. So when it happens that one time that someone dies in police custody, and by the way, he wasn't killed. He was actually with a knife. Yeah. He had a fight with a Sikh guy, and the Sikh guy used his religious knife to, and the police didn't believe him while he was injured. And then when they found out he was injured, it was too late and he bled out. That happened, and there was this big furor that kicked up as though this was the pattern. No, this is an isolated case of which you will find no comparison, of which you will find no pattern. But they always use these things to make themselves the victim. That is what they do. They use these things to make themselves the victim. Okay? They're not interested in justice. They're not interested in equality. They are interested in privilege and the preservation of privilege. White people who complain about DEI are interested in the preservation of privilege. They're not interested in meritocracy. They've never existed in a meritocracy. They don't even know what a meritocracy feels like. They have no idea. There's never been a single aspect of this man's life where he's been in a meritocratic situation. Be it getting on a plane, getting off a plane, turn up to work, turn up to school. Just like this man has experienced nothing but privilege based on his complexion. and then he's gonna sit down here and whinge about the curse of wokeness. You can't make this shit up. Come on, you can play.
Are being promoted on the basis of talent, or because I wonder if what's going on here is a kind of a referendum on wokeness itself. That some people have seized upon him because they make assumptions, fairly or unfairly, that he has been advanced because of his skin color. So therefore, in a sense, he is also a victim of woke, which has introduced this element of doubt into the public's minds as to whether or not people are being promoted on the basis of talent or because the system wants to promote a certain kind of person so it can feel better about itself.
Yeah, and I think that's the lie, right? Like, is there any evidence that happens? I think the problem is that people assume when he got the job that he shouldn't have the job, and they spent the last 3 years trying to prove that he shouldn't have the job.
Yeah,
it's just universities aren't woke.
Exactly, they've gone into it believing he shouldn't be there, and when you go into, obviously, this is what you call an argument in bad faith, because they don't want him to be in that position. So these people who have been after him, this is like a victory for them. It's been a 3-year witch hunt to remove this guy from a position that they don't believe he should have had. And they never had any evidence to remove him. And so all they've done is they've literally been scanning and observing and, you know, freakishly, you know, using a fine-tooth comb to literally comb through every single detail of this life until they find any inconsistency and then paint anything that's not like a perfect alignment as some kind of grand deception. That's what they do, you know.
They're really right-wing, racist, reactionary places where every black academic will tell you our experiences are horrendous. The idea that you have someone picked out, cherry-picked, given this leg up, it just flies in the face of all evidence, all experience. That's why I've been so, not even defending him particularly, but defending the idea that we can't allow people to be pulled down like this, because it really does undermine the idea of black intellectual achievement, right? That's what people are trying to tell you now. He shouldn't have been there. Black people aren't qualified, and there's a deeply racist undertone to that argument.
But you see that from the public's point of view, and I've worked in academia myself, so I'm
from the public's point of view, let's see what this guy has to say, knowing that the media are the ones who shape the public perspective. Let's hear what he says.
I'm balancing both how it seems as an outsider and insider, but from the public's point of view, universities are not reactionary and racist. They look really left-wing and really woke. And so it'll be very surprising to hear that they are apparently bastions of conservatism. And therefore, they assume when they see someone like Jason Arday's promotion that that is a reflection of how left-wing and woke they are.
Once again, like I said, the privileged position. Well, you know, from the general public's point of view, you know, universities are incredibly left-wing. Yeah, they're just desperate to hire white people. I mean, desperate to hire colored people on any opportunity and promote them. You know, I mean, I've heard that if you're black, you don't even have to submit a dissertation. You just need to turn up to all your classes on time, and it's very likely that you'll be passed with a first-class honors. That's what I mean. That's what we all thought. Is that are you telling me that that's not the case? Are you going to sit here with a straight face and tell me that you didn't get your PhD as a result of having 100% attendance? I'd like to know. Please, go on. I'm all ears.
And not actually about his talent.
And that's one of the biggest misconceptions about universities. I mean, it's just simply not the case. These are not. I mean, until 1945, racial science was accepted in these universities. The people that believe that I am not a human being are still taught today, actually. The Enlightenment, Kant, Rousseau, Locke, etc., who still taught today are those people who believe that actually I'm closer to a monkey than a human being. If you, like I said, less than 200 black professors.
And by the way, that's the academics that they praise, the same academics who went through that academic process that they praise. Yeah, all of these 19th century and early 20th century academics who were racist, yeah, who were pushing eugenics and scientific racism, whose books that they rely upon to this very day. And they praise them. They don't erase them. They don't take their books out and burn them. They don't say we need to start again. They just build upon the knowledge that these great, you know, fathers of academia, you know, bestowed upon them, which they now inherit. we are the victims of that. And we thrive in spite of those things existing. And then you've got the nerve to turn around to us and be like, well, you know, the academic institutions have traditionally, if you look historically, we've always favored the blacks, you know. They've always loved the blacks. I don't understand what all this idea that, you know, black people have it hard, you know. As far as I'm concerned, black people get it easier than me, you know.
professors in the whole employed in any university. So few of us, we can't all get a plane together because if it crashes, then we're all gone, right? People like myself being made redundant after 12 years of being very successful. If you speak to any black academic, they will tell you that our experiences are not, this is some woke, wonderful place. It is a grind. It is awful. It is terrible. There's terrible experiences. In fact, that's what Professor Arday's work was about.
Facts, absolute facts. Like I told you at the start, I have spoken to in detail, in depth about experience many black academics, and I'm talking about black PhDs, you know, who are all in senior positions now. I will tell you that what they had to go through to get their PhD is always like ridiculously more than what their white counterparts had to go through. Always. And like I said, many of them paid for their own qualifications, paid to have to do their own research because they couldn't find the institution who would want to fund their research, because they don't like to encourage black people into those most senior levels of academia. And then when they exclude them successfully, then you get these far right institutions that then say the reason black people aren't seen at professorship level or at the very highest levels of academia is because they're not capable, as opposed to the fact that they've created these very effective these very effective gates to prevent black people from being able to progress through. It's a very well-oiled machine, the British academic one.
Student experiences, staff experiences. And I think I would hope that this story will show you that actually that myth that the university is lefty woke is complete nonsense. It's actually one of the most reactionary. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, some of the institutions are the most racist institutions I've stepped foot in, and I include police stations in that too. Universities are horrendous on issues of race.
But he didn't have
shit, and he didn't hear that. That guy just gave him a really generous insight into the experience as a black academic. Do you think he heard a word of that? Okay, all he could do was work. But at the end of the day, you know, I never made professor. Can you tell me why that was the case? Why these guys, man?
Have to be perfect to withstand public scrutiny. He just had to give the impression that he was sincere.
Absolute rubbish. And then even that kind of like, oh, well, he didn't have to be perfect to pass public scrutiny. He just had to be sincere. Oh, how does sincerity work out for Meghan Merkel? Every sincere thing she did, you turned into an attack. Yeah, you turned into attack. There's no amount of sincerity that a black person can give that makes you suddenly go, oh, well, he's telling the truth now. I believe him now. There's nothing he could do. Yeah, you guys have already made your mind up what he is and who he is. Okay, you've already made your mind up about what he is and who he is. So don't know, oh, if he just came and he had just been sincere and contrite in spirit, we would have all got behind. No, you wouldn't have, you lying demon. He had no choice and no chance with you. Full stop.
And doing studies that people think is of public benefit. And the problem is, I think he's just fallen down on those two things.
If his study was not of public benefit, he would not have got the grant to do the PhD. Okay, he wouldn't have been able to find a supervised PhD. So that in itself is a fallacy. Now you're just moving the goalposts, or you don't know how this works. Okay, you won't get the PhD if your research doesn't have some kind of public benefit. That literally is the barometer of whether or not you're going to find someone to supervise your PhD thesis. So what are you talking about?
However, I entirely understand the point about underrepresentation in higher education. I sincerely sympathize with the view that, oh no, this looks like anyone who tries to get on is going to be attacked if they're a person of color.
And you love that. Don't talk about, oh, I sincerely sympathize. No, you absolutely love that. They're finally getting the scrutiny that they need. You know, all of this free, you know, walking into jobs, being able to apply to the same jobs that I apply to is ridiculous. There should be a blacks only application section. The blacks are in the application section. Where are the blacks? This is the black jobs. These are the white jobs. Neither the twain shall meet.
I understand that I suspect there will be a chill going through parts of Oxbridge as a result of this. But I'm afraid he was just a bad example. And coming out to defend him like this by saying it's a smear when there just seems to be so many clear things that he's done wrong, I just don't think it's good for the cause of trying to decolonize education.
Once again, I'm white and I say so. You've been given your opportunity to present the things that he's done wrong. You've been refuted at every turn. if you think he's done all of these things wrong, present them. You don't have a presentation because once again, you hate him because he's black, but that won't reconcile with yourself because you want to believe that you're a good person. So you want to believe you don't hate him because he's black. You want to believe you hate him because he's done these wrong things. But even in the face of that being proven wrong, you're still going to hate him because you're racist. Okay, that's what this boils down to. You, like most of the British public, are a racist, and you don't like black people being in certain positions, and you're always going to be gleeful when black people are brought down from certain positions, and you don't care if it's justified or not. That is the be all and end all of it. I'm not going to mince my words. You are a racist, sir, just like most of the British public.
He's let the side down.
I mean, two things can be true, right? I mean, I think given this level of scrutiny, I don't know that anybody would survive. I'll be 100% honest, given the level of scrutiny, given everything he's gone through, you will find inconsistencies. You will find, if people really want to pile on, they may pile on. But I do think the alternative, so the alternative to me coming on here and saying, well, look, actually, this is a smear campaign. Maybe it's not the perfect individual. Doesn't change the fact it's a smear campaign. Doesn't change the fact that this was coordinated and the underlying, and all the articles I'm seeing now, this proves the DEI is damaging higher education. That's such a terrible narrative. So I guess I'm coming on here not to defend the person. I'm coming on here to say, look, we can't take that narrative because that is simply not the case, right? Something terrible has been done to this young man. He hasn't stood up to the scrutiny, and it really is part of a campaign to undermine the work that I do, that other people do, to undermine the positions that we are in or not in. I think it is important to make that very, very clear. That this is not just he did some bad. He's been lying and he's the problem, and this is just simply about that. It isn't. There's a whole backstory about how black academics are getting treated, what the role of this is, and it was a smear campaign. Even if some of it's true, it doesn't change the fact it was a clearly coordinated smear campaign to pull him there.
But isn't
Exactly, and it's like they always say, you know, a broken clock is going to be right twice. If you coordinate a smear campaign against someone, you're going to find something. That's the bottom line. Like, no one has got a squeaky clean, faultless past. No one's got a, you know, completely fault. Like, no one's, you know, LinkedIn CVs, personal website, backstory, kids, family, etc., etc. No one's life is a complete, you know, ties up into a bow. You know, they're going back to the dude's childhood, yeah, digging out people to make the claim that he wasn't really, you know, because I think the claim is that he didn't really speak until the age of 11. He was a very slow starter in that regards. You know, they're trying to find people to refute that. You know, find some random black guy. Oh yeah, I went to school with my man. Still, like, he used to chat bear. He used to chat bear. He was talkative. We used to call him Talking Jay. You know what I mean? We used to call him Chit Chat Jason. Yeah, like, I'll just find some random dude who make the accusation. Like, this is what they do. Like, this is a smear campaign. Okay, it is a smear campaign. They are smearing the dude's name. He is the victim here. The bottom line is people who want to jump on and make these claims about, oh, well, there's no smoke without fire, this, that. Have you got a PhD? Respectfully. Have you got a PhD? A lot of people who come, are you PhD qualified? Have you sat through that process? To sit down and go to moan about his maybe 1.5 pages that they've repeated where they say, oh, there might be some plagiarism on these pages. Have you written a PhD? Do you have the other 400 pages of his thesis? Have you ever written 400 pages of anything? Sitting there talking about this dude like, you know what I mean, like he should be stripped of everything, like he hasn't put the work in. None of that is the accusation. The accusation being made here against this guy is continually moving. It hasn't sat down, and when the plagiarism failed, they moved to something else. And now it's the whole, he mentioned a book on his website and that book hasn't been published. Like, come on, man. If that's not a smear campaign, then you are an idiot, respectfully.
Isn't academia generally competitive, that professors compete against each other for posts and that they examine the quality of other professors' work, and that they're quite brutal when they think the quality of the work is not good enough, and that he shouldn't be protected from this on the grounds of his race?
I don't think he should be protected. That's not the argument I'm making. My point is that,
and now, see, no one made that argument that he should be protected on the ground. So now they're flipping around their racism and making it seem like, oh, we're saying that DEI should exist. No one's saying that. We're saying that he hasn't done anything exceptional or different to what other academics do. But that's why they're hearing DEI should exist, because they're realizing, no, not realizing, they understand that as white men, only they normally get this privilege. Yeah, the benefit of the doubt always goes to the white male applicant. Okay, but if the benefit of the doubt If anyone else asks for the benefit of the doubt for anyone who falls outside of the white male applicant, it sounds like DEI. Okay, it sounds like well, why should we? It shouldn't be a meritocracy. It should be a meritocratic process. Should you not have to, meet the various standards? It's like, what did you have to meet the standard? Yeah, how many standards did you meet before they hired you for that role? I bet you your journalistic background wasn't that hot when you got this job as a white male. Yeah, didn't have to jump through many hoops. Yeah, it just had to like turn up in your suit, talk with a C pronunciation. They're like, yes, you'll do fine. What's your name? Arthur. Oh, Arthur, I'm Gregory. Nice to meet you. Like that's what you go through. Yeah, respectfully, you guys get this kind of nepotism, get this kind of backhanders, open doors, benefit of the doubt. That's your entire existence. What are you talking about, man?
Given that and everything you said is true, it is quite brutal. He wouldn't have been given the premise that he was given the role because he's black and because he was, they needed to have some diversity, so they just picked any random black person. That is not how Cambridge works. He got the role because his work was good, and that's why he got the role.
I accept that, but they're very proud of him because he was black, and they boasted about that. And they seem not to have carried out proper due diligence on the work and on his CV.
And you see, that was a leap of logic there. You see that was massive conjecture there. Okay, they're very proud of him because he was black. And then, and as a result of that, they seem to have not carried out due diligence on the CV. Who told you they didn't carry out due diligence? You don't even know what was on his damn CV, my man. Yeah? You don't know what was on his CV. Yeah? They were very proud of him because of what he'd achieved. Like this guy had just said to you, he didn't walk into the job with his PhD and they grant him a professorship. He had done things since the PhD to prove that he deserved that role. Yeah, so that's it. That's the end of the discussion. Oh, they didn't do due diligence because they were proud of him because he was black. So you're not allowed to be proud of the fact that you've got more equality in an institution, an age-old institution like Cambridge. Should they not be proud of the fact that they are, equaling the grounds and actually getting the best, the very best from different races? They shouldn't be proud of that. That's something that most organizations are proud of when they meet a diversity quota. But this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to shame institutions away from even talking about their diversity quotas now. It's now safer in the UK to hire an all-white male workforce. It's now safer. It's safer in America already to hire all-white males. You might come under scrutiny. You might lose government backing. You might lose grants if you've got too many ethnic minorities, qualified ethnic minorities. You might lose backing. This world is being taken over by these wimpy, anti-woke racists who want everyone to be white male. That's what the end game is here. There is a very clear end game. This isn't some accidental happenstance. This is a very deliberate smear campaign against a black male individual who, for all intents and purposes, deserves to be in the role, was not fired and was forced to resign because of unwarranted media scrutiny, bullying, and harassment. Yeah, he should be taking out lawsuits against multiple media institutions. I hope someone's able to fund him to do that, because I think he'd have a massive, massive case for defamation lawsuits against across the media, all of those broadsheet papers.
And that's why I blame Cambridge much more than the individual. I think being in one of these media storms can't be much fun for him. But in a way, Cambridge has used him to promote its diversity agenda, and it's promoted somebody whose CV hasn't stood up to scrutiny. And that is Cambridge's fault and responsibility.
What?
And you notice that, once again, that's a dog whistle again. This idea that Cambridge has used him. Yeah, that kind of language is very deliberate because they like to make black people the object. Okay, they always like to objectify black people. It can't be a case of he got the job because he deserved it. So, well, Cambridge has used him. They wanted to appear to be a certain thing. So they found a silly black proxy who's, an unthinking black proxy to take up this position. And then they've used him. And really, I'm not blaming him. How can he know any better? He's just black. He doesn't have a, functioning cerebral cortex. So we know that you guys are closer to the simian kind. So therefore, he couldn't see what was being done. But the institution, they're the ones who should be blamed. It's like, shut up, mate. Yeah, he got what he got exactly. Yeah, he got exactly the position that he applied for. Okay, you guys have to try and always make yourself or put yourselves in the position where someone is attacking you. No one's attacking you. You don't have to make a demon out of this guy. You sought to destroy him from the moment he got his job. That's well documented. Yeah, he's been facing this persecution from the very beginning. From the very beginning, he's been facing this persecution from you guys. And I'm not surprised or shocked. Most black people in the UK have experienced this, where you get someone who just gets a hard on for getting rid of you or for over scrutinizing you or for, you know, I've experienced it multiple times. All right. It's the UK. I'm black. I'm used to it. You won't find that many black people complain about it. Normally we get on with it. I was fortunate enough for it not to be smeared on front of newspapers, you know, but this is what they do.
I just don't know that his, like, the CV points are unclear. The two main ones are not true. They're actually, his academic work early was problematic, but judged to be fine. The voluntary appointments, I can't speak to. I don't know. But most of this storm isn't about CV. It's about other claims which aren't really related at all. And I think that just shows the level to which this is more about trying to discredit him than actually trying to find, you know, back. It's not about this. The story is not about academic integrity whatsoever. That is not why we're talking about this. That's not why nobody would have heard of prior to this now has become like front page news.
Yeah, I sort of understand that. On the other hand, if you're an academic and you're a seeker after truth, and you say things about how many marathons you ran and the other extraordinary claims that don't seem to be particularly credible, the millions that were raised all by him and then it was a team and so on, that makes people doubt your truthfulness. And as an academic, indeed as a politician even more so, your truthfulness is fundamental to your reputation.
I mean,
why does he not believe? This is interesting to know. What's the proof that this guy didn't run all the marathons he's run? Like, that's not an exceptional thing for a lot of people. My older brother was a marathon junkie. So by the age of like his mid-20s, he'd run like all of the marathons, Boston Marathon, UK Marathon multiple times, the one in Wales, Snowdonia, like loads of marathons. Yeah, like loads. That's not a big deal. Now, for someone like him, who you can see doesn't look like he does any physical exercise, just kind of what, you know, just kind of like wanders out of bed in the morning, that he probably doesn't have any muscles in his body whatsoever. That might be like oh my god, wild claims that you're making. Like, what do you know about people's capabilities? This is the thing. When you're an unexceptional person, when you meet people who are exceptional, or not even exceptional, just kind of like, you know, do more than the average person, everything can start, oh, but yeah, it's like when you go on, if you go on a YouTube page, yeah, and you get any kind of like black athlete who's, you know, shredded like black people can be if they just do kind of like moderate amount of, not when I say moderate, like, you know, a professional exercise. Yeah, so you've got someone who's shredded, someone like maybe like a Yoel Romero, or, you know, a lot of these, you know, a lot of black athletes, we know that we shred up a lot more than our white male counterparts naturally. And so what's the accusation they'll make against like a Kamaru Usman, for instance? Oh, he's on PEDs. He's always been on PEDs. Oh, PEDs. Oh, yeah. That's he's cheating. No, he hasn't. He's just not you. Not everybody who lives a more exceptional life than you is lying or has cheated to get there. And you'll find that people operate from their own frame of reference. Once again, it is this perpetual victim mentality that they feel. Okay, they want everyone to sit around and go, well, they'll sit around, they're gonna see themselves sitting on the sofa with a pack of Doritos on their lap, and they'll go, oh, I could never do that. He must be cheating. Oh, you cheated. You cheated to get there, mate. Oh, there's no way you did that for your own merit. It's like, no, get up, yeah, go to the gym, work out, yeah, and you might get similar results. You don't get to judge whether or not someone's cheated in a certain situation unless you're someone who has put in comparable effort. You don't know what the capabilities of a person is because you've always operated at the very lowest ebb of human existence. When you operate in that low ebb of human existence, you don't believe humans are capable of doing these great things without having some kind of external force push them. So you have no right to call them a cheat. So I know that's a bit of a round the table rant, but that's one of the things that pisses me off.
I mean, that's a nice idea, but it's not really true, is it? Like, truth, what is true, what is
truth?
Isn't simply there's the truth and there's a not a truth. There's the accepted truth. There's politics behind it. I mean, Oxford is Cambridge is somewhere that had David Starkey attached to them for 10 years after he came out and said the whites have become black in 20.
Thank you. Rewind.
Cambridge is somewhere that had David Starkey attached to them for 10 years after he came out and said the whites have become black in 2011 with the riots, and still, but David Starkey is allowed to be attached to a Cambridge college. That's
thank you. Rewind. Okay. David Snarky, like senior professor, making outrageously racist comments. Okay. whites have become blacks, this, that, and the other. Oh, it's the Jamaican culture, this, that, and the other. Doesn't see any backlash, doesn't see anyone calling for his job, continues to lecture at universities for several years. Like I've already mentioned, Dr. Richard Lynn, who created these fake, crappy studies that we have about IQ, got his Somalian sample. The reason people believe that modern Somalian people, and I'm saying Somalian deliberately, I'm talking about the nation of Somalia, not the Somali people who are an ethnic group, because this study was done by nation states. So by his study, modern Somalian people, I think they came out an average IQ of 68. So now you hear all these far-right racists claiming that like Somalian people are mentally retarded, which is absolutely, like, it's just so stupid. But he got those results by testing a group of a small group of Somalian people in a Kenyan refugee camp. So people who were under physical duress, probably hungry kids, and then giving them a test that wasn't in their native language. So I think he gave them the test in English and not English speakers. And from that, he ascertained the score of 68, which became the score for the nation of Somalia. That's a British academic who did that. Not only should his study have been discarded, he should have lost every single position that he had at that moment in time. But what do you think the consequence was for him doing this, basically this hack job on the study of IQ in Africa? Nothing, absolutely nothing. His published study is actually resurfaced and has become the #1 reference point for people referencing IQ in Africa to this day. This demon who basically made up these lies and got the worst possible results out of Africa. This is what they do. Do you understand? This is what they do when it comes to, academia, and they're never punished. They're never brought under scrutiny. This is a man who openly has said that he believes in dysgenics, not just eugenics, but dysgenics. Yeah, he believes in the physical erasure of lesser races by assistance. He believes that we as mankind, I mean, he means white people, should assist in the erasure of lesser performing groups. And this is a man who's never been penalized whatsoever. And you're going to tell me that this dude, who the worst thing you can find about him is a flawed kind of like accusation of plagiarism. And you're going to tell me that he needs to be fired and he needs to be the front of the paper. Why is no one calling for Richard Lynn to be removed or David Starkey?
I mean, Oxford is Cambridge is somewhere that had David Starkey attached to them for 10 years after he came out and said the whites have become black in 2011 with the riots, and still, but David Starkey is allowed to be attached to a Cambridge college. That's far more dangerous than Jason Arday exaggerating some things about his achievements in running and making money. I mean, I think the idea that, and I think this is also an idea that underpins a lot of this, is that somehow Cambridge is this elite place where everybody creates this wonderful truth. That's nonsense. There's some terrible work that comes out of Cambridge, which is more dangerous, the actual work itself, than the people. So this is just so many things here are not true. The university is not a left-wing place, and Cambridge is not a bastion of truth, and everybody's not perfect in academia. And if you put anybody under this scrutiny, there will be some cracks. Maybe not these better cracks, I admit that, but there will certainly be some cracks. And the story is not about, like I said, it's not about academic integrity, it's about trying to bring him down.
I just want to add that David Starkey, of course, lost his position later on when he referred to damn blacks or something like that.
So he's now talking about the fact that David Starkey lost his position 10 years later. So he saw no consequence for making those early statements, and 10 years later he said something even more extreme and then lost his position. Why is that relevant? The point that doesn't refute the point that he made at all. But he has to raise up, well, there is some accountability for whites, so you can't make that. If a black person had even said something even that could be even construed as being that level of racist, they would have been out on their ass straight away. Yeah, they would have been quasi-quartanged. So respectfully, miss me with this kind of like pathetic attempt at kind of like equalizing the discussion.
Professor Andrews.
It took damn black. The whites have become black wasn't enough. He had to say there's too many damn blacks.
Well, no, he didn't say there were too many. He said, I am not going to reopen that.
I think the actual quote was, if slavery was a genocide, there wouldn't be so many damn blacks.
Right. Okay.
So he had to say, if slavery was a genocide, there wouldn't be so many damn blacks. That's what he had to say before he was fired. Yeah. His earlier comments, they were fine. But it's only when he said, if slavery was a genocide, there wouldn't still be so many damn blacks amongst us. That's the point at which it's hey, Hey, David, you gotta go, man. You're doing too much, man. We can't defend this. I mean, we were okay with the blacks have become white and blacks are causing all the riots, but man, you can't say that, man. See how out of pocket you gotta be as a white person before you have received any kind of punishment. Do you see how far out of pocket you gotta go before they'll do anything? He should have been embarrassed that the conversation even had to go there, man. What the heck is going on here, man?
Okay, let's please try and forget all about that, Professor Andrews.
Oh, it's easy for you to say. Let's try and forget about all of that. Yeah, that's easy for you to say. Privilege, yeah, privilege, Pete. Yeah, forget about all of that. Yeah, it's easy for you to forget because nothing was said bad about you. Yeah, he just literally said slavery couldn't have been that bad because there's still got so many of these nignogs hanging around. Yeah, you've never been a recipient of racism. You don't understand what racism feels like. You haven't been disabled by racism. You haven't had your opportunities limited by racism. You've had nothing but privilege your entire life. If we're going to talk about racial privilege, and obviously male privilege as well. White males are just the privilege. They don't receive persecution. There's no persecution. And this is why they're so desperate for persecution. They want nothing more in life than to know what it feels like to be a victim. And yet they have no access to true victim mentality. They pretend that they're persecuted by women and they're not. They pretend that they're disadvantaged racially and they're not. The exact opposite is true. So they have to argue against logic to place themselves into a victim position. This is what they do constantly. This is what they're doing now. This is why they're going so hard against this guy, because once again, it always falls down to them wanting to be the victim class. Them wanting to say, hey, he got this job and we were denied it, man. Woohoo, woo, woo, woo. Didn't happen. It didn't happen. Look, I actually had multiple videos, but this video has already gone on for long after this live stream. But I just want you to check this out. Look, check out the comments. Yeah, if you want to know how racist the UK is, let's check out some comments. Okay, because none of them are going to be in defense, by the way, of Professor Arday. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look. 1 second. So Kehinde Andrews, so this is the guy who you just saw, yeah? This is what he says. Kehinde Andrews is a bad faith agent. It is ludicrous for him to suggest that Arday's skin color is the reason why his fanciful claims have been scrutinized. His skin color was the very reason he was promoted so far above his competency level. So now we're arguing his competency. And by the way, all of this being backed up by the media. Let's carry on. He's not made Cambridge look stupid. Cambridge made themselves look stupid, especially when they acted as if they were supporting him, whereas they were only protecting themselves. Once again, no proof of any of these accusations. I reckon a background check on Professor Kehinde Andrews would show a few anomalies. Here we go. Here we go. So now they're attacking the guy who came to speak. And his assertions that universities are bastions of right-wing conservatism are outrageous. It is. Of course it's outrageous because you've never experienced that. Yeah, I'm sure. Let's carry on. My husband worked for a few universities over several years. They are not right-wing by any means. Oh, that's so comforting coming from you. The wokeness was one of the reasons he changed career. It was driving him mad. As for racism, well, the DEI policies were the only racism he ever saw. Oh, I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. Let's carry on. Cambridge should be held accountable for their role in this, but Arday is not a poor man. He has lied through his teeth on numerous points. When has he lied through his teeth? Not simply those related to his position as a full academic, he apparently says he needs time to heal. What? His wounds are entirely self-inflicted. Yes, I'm sure it was him taking selfies and sending them to the media, which is the reason why he's been plastered over every single media outlet. And it's funny because we've got one in the comments, yeah? He said that the argument was always about competency. So this is Excuse Me, who's been saying, oh, you're emotional, this, that, and the other. What's your qualifications, Excuse Me? Because since this argument's about competency, I would like to know, what's your have you got a PhD? Have you ever submitted a thesis that size before? Are you qualified in anything? See, my guess is that you don't have a PhD, and this is why you get a hard on turning around to someone who is actually qualified and making the claims that they deserve the scrutiny they're getting, they deserve to be brought down. You've never done what Professor Arday have done before. You are not qualified. You're not qualified to have this discussion. Okay? There's nothing about, oh yeah, the argument is about competency. You don't have the competency to question his competency. You don't have it. Yeah. So that's what it is. That's the end of discussion. Yeah. When you're in a position to question his competency, then question it. This is outside of your pay grade, dear. Yeah. This is outside of your pay grade. So, okay, your question to me is, do I have a PhD? No, I do not have a PhD, but I'm not critiquing the fact that he has a PhD. I understand how difficult it is to have a PhD. I've spoken to numerous PhDs. I'm probably closer to a PhD than you, but the point being that this is outside of your pay grade. I'm not critiquing his PhD. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, well, he's not competent. No, I'm actually arguing that he is competent. He's got a PhD. He was granted a PhD, yeah, by a very, very credible university. Yeah. And therefore, he's qualified to do his job. You've listened to the people at Cambridge talk about the fact that they've been very impressed by the multiple papers that he's published. Okay. He's been published in academic journals, something that you never will do. Excuse me. Yeah. So therefore, don't talk about someone's competency. You're not qualified for this discussion. That's the thing about the British people. They think they're so flipping smart. They think they're so flipping intelligent about stuff they know nothing about. And they're just the most entitled and self-privileged bunch of people that you'll ever come across in your life. They achieve nothing and sit down critiquing everybody else, having achieved nothing in their own personal life, and then thinking that because they read a broadsheet paper and they can understand some of the words, that all of a sudden their opinion means something. Your opinion means nothing. Yeah, nothing. I don't care what works on you. Yeah, you've seen that your point's irrelevant now, so now I can ignore you. Okay, you're done. Okay. Anyway, guys, that's the end of my live stream. I don't mind ending cooking a little arrogant Brit. Yeah, that's one of my favorite pastimes, to be honest with you. But I'm gonna call it a day there. I hope you found that informative. This is an unfortunate story that we've been faced with, and it's one that's gonna plague my timeline, I fear, for at least the next week, maybe the next week and a half. So I'm kind of just stuck here with this unfortunate story, where they're going to be trying to literally, degrade this person, bring him down, and not have any evidence, just like, the idiot in the comments, not have anything to support their argument other than the fact that, oh, he's not competent enough. Oh, he's black, so he needs to do his qualification again. I'm not really having anything other than that. This is what we face in the UK. So yeah, it does bother me. It really annoys me, but it kind of is what it is. Let me read out this comment, which has been posted about 6 or 7 times, because it's fair enough to say. So Mekhanger says, Jane Goodall was awarded a PhD from Cambridge without even doing an undergrad. She just went straight into a PhD program. Look this up, please. I believe that to be the case. I do know that can happen sometimes, but you do have to have kind of prior exposure. So if you've been working in the field, sometimes you can go straight into a PhD program, but I don't know enough about this particular subject. But I do know that nepotism in education is massive. And all these people who talk about competency do not realize how hard Black people have it to get any kind of foot ahead, particularly a grant to do a PhD. This almost never happens. So sitting there with their little arrogant selves when they haven't done anything themselves, probably haven't even squished together 2 A-levels, and sitting there with their smug comments, oh, we just want to be competent, meritocracy. Oh, shut up. You just want to preserve your privilege, you twat. But anyway, we'll leave it at that, guys. Have a fantastic evening or whatever you're doing, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much, Kieran, for your donation as well. It's much appreciated. Peace, guys.